sit next to this guy. Across the way.
You need to get a cord.
I know.
Hang around your neck.
He's right there. No, right there. So, the 1920s, they had coal burning fireplaces in them. And so they took off
Oh,
the front.
good point, your signature.
I guess we're at 6 o'clock. We are in session for special call meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen for Tuesday, December 20th, 2016. This is a special call meeting, and minutes will be taken, as well as the meeting will be recorded. This is not a work session, so there will be motions and there will be votes taken this evening. We very much appreciate our clerk putting together these very extensive booklets for us. It's a new system that's been implemented. It's all online, and so it's a little bit more cumbersome than it's been in the past. And Michelle's getting the hang of the system, and it'll probably be a little bit less cumbersome next year. We would like to welcome our newest alderman to the table. Congratulations. Welcome, Alderman Massey. We're glad to have you here. And now the work begins, so to speak. So with that being said, you have an agenda. Packets were provided to you that are made public as well. We'll treat this like a normal meeting, and we'll go down the agenda from item 1 to actually a couple of add-ons. And matter of fact, before we get to that point, would you like to go and clarify what those will be, Patrick?
I would, Mayor, if this board indulge me. We had on the, if you notice the list of the Alderman liaison appointments, we had Ms. Gibson is identified as a liaison to the library board. There actually is not a liaison to the library board.
So with the special call meeting, it's not unlike any of our regularly scheduled public meetings. We will operate under Robert's rules, and if you have the floor, you have the floor. Please be gracious to yield the floor and not talk over others when we get to that point of debate, discussion, dialogue, those type things. That brings us to the first item of business on the agenda this evening, the appointment of the vice mayor. The floor is open. Is there a nomination?
Move to nominate Mary Ann Gibson. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on that particular motion? Is it?
Absolutely.
That brings us to Alderman liaison appointments. I would like to ask that our city attorney just give us a little bit of clarity on what our charter guidelines for, before we even go through the process, so to speak.
Sure. We have a number of boards and commissions, and our ordinance provides for appointments to those boards and commissions. There's a sort of a catch-all provision where if there are no specific designated numbers or people to serve in those roles, it's captured in our catch-all. But we do have certain boards and commissions where we have specific requirements, and those include our first of all, our planning commission, our board of zoning appeals, and our design review commission. And then in certain other instances, we have some just historical differences that call for us to appoint either different numbers or to have the mayor make certain appointments and the DMA make certain other appointments. So we just got to go through one by one. Patrick has done a good job in your report as you get to each tab to see what the specific requirements are for those particular boards and commissions. And Patrick really should speak more to this than me because it's really more history. The liaison appointments, maybe you should speak to as to how we've done that in the past.
Thank you.
What
As
the
David
tradition is.
mentioned, if you look, there's a provision in the ordinance that follows the charter where it specifically says for, as David mentioned, planning commission, board of zoning appeals, DRC, and then it goes into, and it mentions the Parks and Recreation Commission, Financial Advisory Commission, and there's at least one other where it says there'll be an alderman liaison. But it's really silent when you get into some of the other commissions, whether or not there'll be a liaison. It's been this board's practice for as long as I've been here, 29 years, where we have had a alderman liaison, and the purpose behind it has been to create that continuity between city staff, the board of mayor and aldermen, to bring back reports as we do now with Mayor Palazzolo on what's happening at the commission level. So it's a good practice to have those liaisons in place. Some of them specifically provide for it, as the ones that I just mentioned. Others we've done over years and years and years of practice of having an alderman liaison. So it is one, and I'll have David back me up on this. For example, the Board of Zoning Appeals is a little bit different in terms of how it treats the alderman who is appointed to serve in that position. It doesn't call for an alderman, but it does say that an alderman will be appointed to serve on the Board of Zoning Appeals. It also goes further to say that that alderman will stay in that position during his or her term in office. And Dave and I looked at that today. We said, like, well, that we can interpret that to mean that whoever is the current alderman appointed to serve on the Board of Zoning Appeals will stay in that position through their term of office. So in this case, I believe that's Ms. Gibson.
Yes, that's the way it reads. It could have been that the mayor would serve on BZA or an alderman.
Right.
But last year, or maybe even before that, decision was made to appoint Alderman Gibson to BZA. And then when you read the entire ordinance, what it indicates is once appointed, she would continue to serve in that role through the term of her office as an alderman.
Dave, what page are you reading?
I'm reading that.
It's not in that, but it's in the charter itself following.
Well, actually, it's section
It actually-
It is in there? Okay.
23-46, and I
Sorry.
think.
Point of order regarding that matter. A year ago, I surrendered when asked with the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Yeah, and that's where I was headed. And so what it provides is that that person will continue to serve throughout their term as an alderman unless they resign from that position.
But I was asked, and I was pretty much put in a trick bag, if you will,
Yeah.
in regards to one or another. And
What was the other?
the other was economic development.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I
I
looked
was
at.
called and
Mhm.
I was told that you wanted to have economic development.
Okay.
And because of my work with economic development, I wanted to retain it. And so Mr.
Sure.
Lawton said, well, Mary Ann really wants it. And I said, well, I'm not gonna give it up. I don't wanna give it up.
Gotcha.
So
I didn't
he
know.
said, how about Board of Zoning Appeals?
Okay. Because on the ones that I requested, BZA was never even part of my conversation, and so I thought that you did not want that. So, again, here we are. I would like to retain BZA just because of the continuity. So I'm assuming that what's done is done. I think that moving forward, this is,
Well, I respectfully want to know why it wasn't addressed last year at this time. I was called to surrender one of the two, and I tried to, because of my respect for you, but I didn't want to give up economic
sure.
development because I had worked pretty hard.
But, well, and that makes sense, but I don't think we even discussed this at the table last year.
That's exactly right, and that's why I bring it up. And.
But
to
that
bring
would
it
have
up-
been yours to
This doesn't really
discuss.
involve you, it involves Mr. Walton and his conversation with me. And so, you know, going forward, I can appreciate it, but looking backwards, we should have addressed this last year.
Well, in my defense, we were working on trying to create a slate of alderman liaisons for all the different boards and commissions. And commission members, we were asked, what are your top 3 or 4 going forward? What would be of interest? Alderman Barzisa, I have no authority to dictate to any of the aldermen, you'll be on this commission. That's up to this body.
But you were the one who made the call, Patrick.
I did not make the call, Alderman Barzisa.
No, you made the call, phone call to me.
Phone call, okay. Phone call, yes, to discuss, here's where certain aldermen were on selection process. No way, no how do I have the authority to say, this alderman will have this position, this alderman will have that position. I was only trying to facilitate a process by which the aldermen had the opportunity to look at those boards and commissions that they felt that they
Well, I
wanted to
respectfully
have.
protest, since it wasn't brought up last year, I respectfully protest, now that it happens, that this, we just found out after, and no disrespect to
I
you.
understand.
This is certainly not your
No,
fault.
thank you.
Well,
But
let's
we should have
continue with
discussed that.
the city attorney's explanation, moving forward, so.
Well, I didn't have the opportunity to be involved with it last year, but I do now. And if you read this section in its entirety, it clearly states that the term of office for the alderman member of the BZA shall be concurrent with their term of office. So at this point, we have an alderman who is appointed to the BZA, and it provides that her term would continue concurrent with her term of office as an alderman, unless she chose to resign.
And Alderman Barzisa, in all
Not so,
respect,
I should say.
I was not aware of this language. When I was looking at this today, going back through my notes, making sure we're prepared for this evening, I saw this in here. I called our city attorney and I said, Mr. Harris, help me interpret what I'm looking at here, because this appears to read this way. I was not aware of this language in this section of the Code of Ordinances regarding the BZA until this afternoon, and had it clarified with our city attorney.
Certainly, and then any alderman that has this could have read it and had an interpretation at that time. So last year was just trading and making decisions among commissions. Planning Commission and DRC, or those are 2 other ones?
Mayor, may I ask a question?
Sure.
I'm trying to find where we're looking at for this Board of Zoning and Appeals. Can you point out exactly where that language is?
Alderman Massey, included in your material was a handout that looks like this.
Right.
And there are copies of the sections of the Code of Ordinances that deal with membership, how they're organized.
It's page 4 on the back of page 4.
That's 2-sided, it's the back of page 4.
Yeah, I'm there.
23-46.
Yeah.
You have to go all the way to the end to get the section, the sentences that we've been discussing. You really have to read it all, start to finish to get follow it.
But do you mind pointing out which sentence in the paragraph?
Sure, that I was referring to?
Yes, sir.
Yes, it's at the, it's the next to last sentence. It reads, the term of office for the mayor or alderman. That references back to the beginning, which is the second sentence.
Any other questions on BZA? I'll just state, I don't plan on serving on it.
Well, and just a comment, I think that had we had a discussion while we sat here last year, knowing that Alderman Barzisa now, because again, we don't get to chit chat about this. I discussed with Patrick, he discusses with you, as that's how this would work, unless there is discussion at the table. Had we had that discussion, I it never was on my radar. Having served on it for the last year, I have very much enjoyed that time. I feel like I've learned an awful lot and been able to contribute, just from my business background. So, here we are, and I do want to retain that. It's one of the things, we had our one-on-one, yesterday, for, another discussion with our attorney, and I did communicate that yesterday afternoon to our administrator. And so I explained that I would like to do that. So I'm certain that that's where the conversation, started with the ordinance. I guess as you went to look at that, and I don't know, I'll let you.
Well,
look
I
at that.
just say this and let's just move on.
Planning and it seems like BZA.
Are you gonna say something, Jennifer? I do have a point to make, if you don't mind. If we're gonna move on, that's fine, but I think it should be pointed out that I believe that the language says that it is concurrent with their respective term of office or appointment. So you really have the choice, to do what you wanna do, I think. But if you wanted to give this up to John, or the attorney were to say, well, John needs it back, whatever, I think you can.
Right, I'm not unclear on that.
I just think we need to move on, considering the fact that with her business background as a real estate agent, and, I think it would be wise for you to go ahead and stay on there. I'm just pointing out that this wasn't addressed last year, and that I'm pushing back as a result of that.
And again, Alderman versus that. I apologize.
I understand.
I was not aware.
No need to.
I was not aware of the language, John, at that point. It was only
Let's just move
today.
on. We got a lot to do.
Mr. Harris, planning or DRC, any
I don't think
Nuggets
there's
there?
any more to add to that. The planning commission has 3 expiring appointments, so we're filling 3 positions there. The mayor serves on the planning commission, and an alderman serves on the planning commission. As I said, there are 3 expiring appointments, and that's all the rules for that. DRC, of course, DRC is unique because you are to select people with certain professional backgrounds, and as well as an alderman. serving DRC.
Any questions for our city attorney on any of those quasi-judicial and governmental boards? All right, as we move to the next item on the agenda, would be Alderman Liaison appointments. What you've been provided is only a recommended slate. At this time, you can talk among, you can trade if you like, you can bring up commissions that you may or may not want. I'll just give you a brief amount of history, and Patrick, you can chime in at any point in time, because your history is longer than mine. In years past, the selection of the liaisons is not identified in the charter specifically by methodology. And so over time, it's gone by seniority. Other times it's gone by position 1 through 5. I'm thinking back to the times that I've served. It's been, one year it was Alderman 5 been selected, and it went down to 1. One year we did by alphabetic order. Another year we did reverse alphabetic order. So there's been no pattern in 12 to 20 years of making the slate in front of you. What we did was we assembled what people served on last year, put that, and tried to fill the aldermen that just retired from the board, those positions, and kind of slot them through with people's different various backgrounds. And so at this point in time, this is open to your selection. And it's good open governing that you guys discuss it, opposed to what we've done in the past where you communicate with Patrick. Patrick is unfortunately at times the fall guy to communicate back, and then it's all settled already. This format tonight lets you discuss it more in open with your colleagues, so what a great night for that. So the floor is open for anyone who would like to make any horse trading changes, any discussion, dialogue. you can see the presentation there. I will make a couple of notes before I yield the floor. So we will add Mary Ann Gibson as Board of Zoning Appeals because it fulfills a charter requirement, or an ordinance requirement. You will notice that some do not have Alderman liaisons ships. So with that said, the floor is open. Any questions on boards and commissions as presented to you?
Mayor, I
Yes.
have a conflict in schedule.
Sure.
Two of my commissions. One was the Environmental Commission and the other one was the Great Hall Commission, I believe. Although I'm looking at the Great Hall and I don't see when they meet now, but I think it's Thursday at 6 o'clock.
It is right here, Dean.
It's on the
third page.
tab, yeah.
Okay, right.
I think it should be right before multiple applications.
Did you say environmental, and which one, Alderman Massey?
I believe it's the Great Hall, yeah, Thursday, 6 o'clock, and Environmental, so that's Thursday at 6 o'clock.
I think the Great Hall's changed to Wednesdays at 6 o'clock. And
Great
Yes,
Hall
it-
got
it-
Thursday.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
It went back and forth.
Mayor, I would possibly like to do some horse trading. as
Sure.
You said, I don't
Floor's
know
open.
if Alderman Yonda would be willing to do this, but I do have some experience dealing with benefits and health insurance and things of that nature. My profession is as an insurance broker, and I was wondering if I might be able to take the Personnel Advisory Commission. I think that's a commission that Alderman Cleland had, and if I could have that, I would appreciate it.
that was on it before David was, reviewing all this stuff. Yeah, I mean, I think I can do that. I mean, it's, I'm trying to, yeah, I'm just,
Did you take,
I'll take one of those, I'll take environmental backer.
Okay.
You know, I mean, that's a really good commission. Personal advisory.
Like Dean on Personnel Advisory, you environmental? Is that what you
Yeah,
got?
that'd be fine. Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
I'd like to do some horse trading. Alderman Yang, I'd like to have Financial Advisory Commission.
Nope, I don't want that one. Definitely.
Well, that was pretty clear.
I definitely want that one.
Mayor, one of the things that I have heard from some of the citizens is that we have two aldermen that have control of some of the quasi-judicial and other very important commissions. And I don't think it was done intentionally, but Alderman Owens got the Planning Commission, the BZA, and the, what's the third that you had?
DRC.
And the Design Review Commission. And then Alderman Yonda has,
Thank you for saying it properly.
yes, sir. So Alderman Yonda has the Audit Committee, the Financial Advisory Committee, and then you've given up the Personnel Advisory Commission, and I don't remember what your fourth was.
It's the retirement.
And then the retirement.
I think it's important for people, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I think it's important that we have a vertical in terms of knowing, and the remembrance, and I have a hesitant to give up the personnel. It's always, you know, we have the raises there, we have the benefits there, and so I think it's important that the person who's in the FAC have definitely communication, but you and I will have to have communication on personnel, so we know what we're doing in terms of our budgeting and stuff. And it's as needed, it's also the first 6 months. But, and I think you can speak your expertise too, because I have expertise in this area, and I've done it. But that's one reason I like the Personnel Advisory Commissions, because you know what the raises are gonna be, you know how that's gonna affect, and you already know particularly when it's about to happen. We'll be in communication on that, but I've had those, I guess, for 2 or 3 years in that area, so.
The perception is that we've lost our system of checks and balances.
Well, that's what you guys are for. If you attend the other, anybody, of course, you usually ask permission, and I don't know if they've communicated that to you before you go to someone's commission. But everyone's welcome at every commission meeting. Every alderman can be. Y'all are part of this checks and balances.
Seeing
And
as,
plus, their commission is made up of citizens. Don't forget that, especially the Fed, right? The FEC's got 24. You, sir.
yeah, I was not exactly thrilled about having all three, the development commissions, and so now that with Mary Ann having the Board of Zoning Appeals, I feel much better about it. I mean, I did serve my master's degrees in city planning and served here for 10 years, so, design review and planning is something I'm comfortable with. And so I think it sort of, by the nature of this discussion here today, it kind of evened out a little bit better than it was originally slated to be.
And I would point out that the planning commission has a similar language in it, in that it says the terms of the mayor and the alderman run concurrently with their terms of office, just like the one we looked at a minute ago. So the current term of the mayor and former Vice Mayor Owens, they're still running, and our ordinance says that they remain unless, of course, they decided to resign.
Parks, would you give up Parks and Rec?
I was really excited about Parks and Rec because we're doing that master plan this year, and I really wanted to be a part of that. Is there another commission you might be interested in that, I don't wanna give up planning, and I kinda wanted Parks and Rec just because I've been working this year to kinda get to that
Back
point.
design review.
I would be willing to give up design review.
Okay, thank you very much.
Which means, where are your commissions?
I think it kind of works out, 3 and 4, but with you having the wellness council and that vice of the task force, I think it does even out, but
Okay.
I know yeah, go ahead.
There will be Leslie, there will be a conflict on the schedule for historic and DRC. They're both 4th Tuesday.
They could change it.
Yeah, the
Well-
only other thing is, we were very limited on conference room space, so that's just,
Well,
that's.
historic meets over Parks and Rec
Parks and
anyway.
Rec.
And I'm sure Jackie wouldn't mind changing the date. Unless somebody else wants historic.
I'll make a motion to approve as we've presented them here.
Looks like there's a couple of, just if we're filling slots, tree board still, I don't see a liaison there.
That's
I
not,
don't think there is a
No,
liaison.
okay.
Bar one.
Correct. Thank you.
Michelle, did you have a hard question, or were you stretching?
Yes and yes.
Alderman Owens, you made a motion to close and accept the slate that's currently out there. Is that your motion?
That is my motion.
There's a motion on the table to accept, and I'll read it in a moment, so that everyone's clear.
Just some folks that slide in for certain categories for deer.
There's a motion on the table to accept the agenda the liaison appointments as discussed.
Second.
There's a second. Those are the following: Audit, Rocky Yonda; Beautification, Mary Ann Gibson; Board of Zoning Appeals, Mary Ann Gibson; Design Review Commission, John Barzizza; Economic Development Commission, John Barzizza; Education Commission, Mary Ann Gibson; Environmental Commission, Rocky Yonda; Financial Advisory Commission, Rocky Yonda; Germantown Athletic Club Commission, Dean Massey; Great Hall Advisory Commission, Dean Massey; Historic Commission, John Barzizza; Neighborhood Preservation Commission, Mary Ann Gibson. Parks and Recreation Commission, Forrest Owens. Personnel Advisory Commission, Peter Massey. Planning Commission, Forrest Owens. Public Safety Education Commission, Dean Massey. Retirement Plan Administration Commission, Rocky Yonda. Senior Citizens Commission, John Barziza. Is there discussion on the motion? Please call the roll.
Alderman Massey,
Yes.
Alderman Owens,
Yes.
Alderman Yonda,
Yes.
Alderman Barziza,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson.
Yes.
The liaison appointments have been approved, and so